Welcome everyone to BarnBridge, project called 16. Big day today. I'm just gonna hand it over to Bogdan G.
Bogdan G.
For the updates.
I'm Bogdan G. Okay, let me get my Google glasses on. Google glasses, whatever happened to those? Are those still a thing?
No, they've been discontinued.
Good. These are much better. Okay, so the overall theme of things. We've had some delays, but these delays brought on some good and some bad news. All in all, things are still going as planned. We might even have a couple of surprises. For the yield farming part, let's do it step by step. This was the first thing we launched, which now makes it the oldest. So we're giving the yield farming app a new skin, polishing it to look more in tune with the rest of the app. It's not something that people have asked for, but we're doing it nonetheless. However, we've seen a bunch of requests for like reworking all of the deposit input forms across the app. Since we're doing the polishes, we're also going to do those. This means that we are going to allow users to simulate transactions with, not simulate transactions, actually simulate the inputs, play around with the input forms with different balances, and do that without having to enable the token or without having to have a certain balance. Think of it as like Uniswap does it, how they allow it, like play with the inputs and see what a trade would yield, even if you don't have an allowance for that token, even if you don't have a balance for it. I mean, we should all be familiar with that UX, and if it's good enough for Uniswap, it's good enough for us. These are the cosmetic changes. Governance. The governance section still unchanged. No plans in the near future to change anything, except maybe we have these planned, but it's it's not set in stone. We'd want to add a distinct page for each address, like you see a certain user's voting history, who that address delegates to, if we delegate to someone, and so on. So a sort of user history page. Compound does something similar, I guess. So some of you might expect how that looks like. Yield farming governance, smart yield. Well, here comes the bad news. Aave Ninja released a sort of liquidity mining program, which means that the current implementation of smart yield we had, which was working and actually running on testnets, by the way, we have to change some things to account for those. Unfortunately, this would mean that we are back where we were a couple of weeks ago, pretty much, and I have to repeat what I said that time. Smart yield for Aave is coming soon. But that's about it for the bad news. Good news, a two-pronged approach to delivering the good news. Good news number one, we have a solution for the Aave liquidity mining thing, and we are already working on changing the parts needed to implement that solution. And with that, the kicker is that it gives us more time to look into something else that people have been requesting, which is layer 2 implementation of smart yield. In this case, on Polygon for Aave. So we are trying to make good use of the delays, good use of this time, do all the changes in parallel. These changes have some challenges, and maybe some insight into what those challenges are. One would be bridging governance proposals. So whenever the mainnet DAO needs to change some parameters or something with the Polygon Aave smart yield, we need a way to bridge those. And the second challenge would be getting the fees that accrue on the Polygon version and moving them back to the mainnet treasury. So we are in contact with the Polygon team. We're getting advice from them on how to deal with this whole thing. And yeah, we are confident that this delay will boost our timeline for a layer 2 deployment. Good news number 2, even more good use of the delay with the whole other thing. So we've had a really productive call with the Cream finance team. So we are actually planning on releasing a Cream integration with Smart Yield, and that's probably going to happen before Aave rolls out. So TLDR on the whole Smart Yield, bad news and good news. Aave Smart Yield is delayed, but we hope to have a Cream and an Aave Layer 2 implementation coming very shortly, along with the Aave mainnet, Ethereum mainnet implementation. And yeah, maybe that sweetens the deal and makes you guys forgive us for the delays. Let me scroll down on my agenda. Smart exposure. This is the sort of secret ninja one that we haven't released any specs for yet, but let's keep it in the spirit of previous year unplanned surprises. I hope we keep it under cover at least for a couple of weeks more. Last call, I think I mentioned we're doing rounds of feedback on the UI. I can give you this much of an update. We've finished those rounds of feedback. We are working on the development. It started and it's going well. Front end side, at least, we are close to the finish line and should probably start connecting the front end to the contracts sometime next week. Smart exposure, the unplanned one. Smart alpha, the planned one, the crown jewel. Not a lot of updates, at least not ones I'm willing to spoil at this point. It's still work in progress. Things are going okay. Maybe I could say we're thinking of good use cases for it. I hope we get to plan some partnerships, some integrations for that early on, so we can roll it out in style. I think that's it. Did I miss anything on the agenda? Troy, you may have changed stuff.
The only other thing was the public testnet.
Oh, as I said that question, the public testnet thing came to mind. Yeah, also something that everyone asked for, and maybe I should have started with that instead of saying you're going to be able to play with the inputs. We are going to have a public testnet implementation out pretty soon. So it's going to have its own separate deployment of the contracts. Everyone is going to be able to play with those. It's going to be separate from the dev environment that we use, but probably the best way of understanding Smart Yield and Smart Exposure and everything is actually playing with it and seeing how it works. We're going to have faucets for the tokens. Actually, the yield farming part of the app is not going to be out on the testnet app because it's redundant. So we're just going to have governance and Smart Yield. And to get bond token for the governance, for the proposals, there's going to be a Kovan Uniswap KETH to bond market. And for those that want to implement proposals and for some reason want larger amounts of bond, the testnet token is going to be mintable, and we're going to have a special forum category for people to give us a short reason on why they want that bond, what they plan to do with it, and we may just mint enough to give them enough to create a proposal and pass it and do whatever they want. Yeah, I think that covers it for the testnet. Don't want to give any timelines on anything yet, but it's all coming pretty soon. So weeks, not days on some, weeks on some. I don't even think we're talking about months on anything. So good news.
Are you doing a Joe Lubin joke?
Exactly. few know about those.
Very nice.
Sorry, Joe, if you're watching.
Okay. All right. Well, with that, I think that was an awesome update on the tech side. Thank you. Let's turn it over to operations. I think let's start off with Pablo. Pablo, if you want to give an update on your stuff, please.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. So I'll start from the docs part. The docs V2 is coming along. We have pretty covered the guides, the new guides for the smart yield and for the governance. Working on the smart exposure guide right now. Other than that, Vitalik has designed the introducing the smart yield PDF guide with some modeling. So that's also being revealed and available to download. Now we haven't announced it yet, but we have been quietly working on the website revamp, and Dennis and the dev team put together some amazing designs. We are currently working on the actually on the development part. So this is moving along too, and I think very short, in a very short time we'll be able to share with you the new style and feel of the website. That's for the operations side. I have a few more updates on the integration team. So our primary focus over the past time was working on the flow and getting the documentation for the developers and for the teams that will potentially want to integrate with us. So this is still being worked on. We have been working on, we have been talking to CoinGecko to get the junior yield farming API pool listed on the DeFi farms page. Then we have worked with the dev team to get the DeFi Llama adapter fixed. That now shows the correct TVL number, which actually is being used by CoinGecko. So the TVL is showing up right there now. We have been also closely monitoring the community intake form. Not a lot of the applications recently, but looking forward to those. And if anyone from the community has any ideas or suggestions, feel free to fill this out, and we'll make sure to review it.
Awesome. Thank you, Pablo. And then can we get an update from Akin, please?
Yeah, sure. So this will be short and sweet. We continue to, well, I spoke, I think on the last call, we had an AMA with DeFi Alliance, and I published the answers to the AMA in our Discord. So for those who didn't see it, you might want to go to the announcement section and you can kind of review what we talked about there. There could be some interesting added information that you can leverage, or nothing should be too brand new, but I think there are some questions answered there that might be new information. Open DeFi, there's some changes with their organization that will be announced in the next couple of weeks that would have an impact, well, a positive impact on the BarnBridge community. So look out for that. We'll probably publish an announcement after they do, but just sort of like a heads up in the next couple of weeks, you should see something in that regard. We applied to join the Enterprise Ethereum Alliance on the advice of some of our partners that we've been talking to. For those who don't know, it's basically a forum where a lot of traditional and traditional finance entities, banks and financial institutions sort of engage the Ethereum ecosystem. And so we thought it would make sense for us to be part of that group and kind of like leveraging as a networking organization to further the goals of BarnBridge within that community. And that should be relatively straightforward. We've applied, we just have to pay the annual fee. And the hope is that there'll be a host of forums and events and activities we get access to through that. So that should be good from a biz dev / marketing perspective. And the last thing is just around, we've been having some conversations internally as well around just, in terms of like data and disclosure information that we can provide on the UI as we continue to expand implementations, right, with different entities. So look out for that. I think as we sort of make some updates to the UI, there might be some integrations we include there that provide just further information on the counterparties that we're working with to give users all the information they need to make the best investment decisions. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Cool. And I'll just follow up on Akin here by updating everyone that our China Community Management Program is up and running. Leo started earlier this week and is in the process of building out various channels and just letting folks know he's on behalf of BarnBridge. So looking forward to what comes as a result of that in May.
Yeah, it's very cool. And then the final stuff is I'm gonna just kind of hand it over to Tyler to give a synopsis on it.
So yeah, obviously we were listed on Aave. Troy, you had
Gemini.
sent me, I'm sorry,
Not on it.
on Gemini.
Not yet. Not yet, sir.
Well, while I was looking for, you had sent me like some bullet points on some things that I needed to talk about on this call, and I
No,
actually
I just,
went off of them.
it was just about the Gemini listing and then doing it in the right way.
Oh, okay, yeah. So, I mean, I was gonna tweet about this morning, but we're working with like a couple different exchanges. So I don't want to like put a target on our back by saying this, but at least in this form, I think it's appropriate. Like the biggest thing about the Gemini listing isn't like number go up or everybody asking in like the Discord like when listings, when exchange. It's more that like Gemini is like a New York regulated financial institution. And so like naturally they're they have to have a higher scrutiny on the things that they list than other like exchanges, like for instance, one in like another country that has far less like regulatory concerns, which is one of the reasons that Gemini like only has like 40 coins listed on their site. They're one of like the most, they scrutinize the hardest. Like even some of the other big US exchanges probably don't scrutinize as hard as Gemini because they're not regulated in New York. So the fact that they listed bond and that we fit their security parameters, I think that that's a big tip of the hat to the team and like people knowing some of the people who have been in the space for a long time. But it's also a tip of the hat to like the process in which we rolled things out. So like from the perspective of going DAO first, I think that that's that should kind of be a green light to the industry, at least for a lot of like American people in DeFi that are thinking about starting projects, that doing it under like a DAO first approach will help. But also like we're very, very, I don't want to say like aggressive, but like almost like obsessive about making sure that this project was actually decentralized and that the community actually had more tokens in their hands as we rolled out the products than like the original people that put money into the seed round or even the team. Like we took substantially less of a stake than other projects that came before us. And I think that a lot of that, I mean, obviously people need to get their own legal advice and I'm not a lawyer, but it's a very, very strong, a strong signal for the DAO first approach. I think mixed with our obsessive, intent to decentralize the project. And then also just kind of the way that we rolled it out by not talking about prices, not talking about exchange listings, and really trying to focus on the tech and technology and what we're building. And so yeah, I mean, I would say that people should almost look at a lot of these videos where we're trying to do things extremely transparently in the eyes of the community to kind of see how we rolled things out, look at our Medium articles, because I think that going forward, it should be a good, I mean, I don't think we did it perfect, but I think we did things very, very well. And I think that these institutions looking at us that way is showing that.
Yeah, I agree. There's also another question that we noticed that it has come up a lot, and I'm just going to add this to the roundtable and we can kind of talk about this, is that people have asked us if we want to take the rewards, the fees essentially, and then go take them and then buy smart yield somewhere to procure runway. So I don't know what people's opinions are on that, but we could all kind of just have a quick, if anyone has any thoughts about that, what they think.
I don't know how that mechanism works in terms of if it goes to like a different bucket or it goes into the same treasury where like all of the bond tokens are that are in the treasury. But I guess regardless, that's a little irrelevant. We have been like, there's been a couple teams that have started looking at the senior side of smart yield as a way to lock up some of their own like fees to treasury. So like a lot of treasuries are in their own token. So like BarnBridge, for instance, like, yeah, we have a big treasury, but it's in our own token. And like right now you can't, even when we do get listed on these platforms like Aave, like the spread or like the percentage of return on those, I mean, long term is just not going to be the same as a stable coin because that's what people use to borrow and lend in traditional markets. But I think that a lot of treasuries that plug into these platforms, whether it be, I mean, Yearn has not talked to us, but they're an example of a group that is generating a lot of stablecoin to their treasuries, and then also stablecoins to their treasury. A lot of like stablecoin projects have reached out to us, like kind of with the same mindset. And so I think that if we, I mean, some of our treasury and our, like, we did deposit into the senior side originally through our own treasury management, like meaning the core team. But I think doing it like in a public way through the DAO is actually pretty strong to signal that that we're kind of eating our own dog food, and it shows other projects like what we're doing. Because when I've talked to projects about this, they've been extremely receptive. I mean, like I even know like the Olympus DAO group, I talked to them literally yesterday about this, and their biggest thing was we don't have a deep enough pool for DAI. So I think when we're incentivizing pools, when we move to like Aave and Cream, we very likely will want to incentivize things other than just USDC. But like they're an example of a group that it would benefit them to be able to lock in a stable yield on our platform. And I think even aside from that, like Pool Together's talked to us about building integrations where it makes their platform more stable. So while we're looking for, we're definitely going to focus on TradFi to get stablecoin yield higher. But there are, I guess my point is there's massive treasuries within DeFi right now that I think could utilize our protocol. And I think that we need to think about that. And I think us doing it is a very big signal to the industry. I don't know if other people have thoughts, but that's my opinion on it.
I mean, I like the idea of us being the model for it, especially through the DAO. And then allowing other projects to see how you can use it. I think that's really strong. And we should be on some level, even though we did do it sort of like through the multi-sig.
But we didn't really tell anybody we did that. And I think doing it through the multi-sig is one thing. Doing it at like voting with the community to do it, I think is even, it's substantially more powerful because it's not, it's not a couple people making that decision. It's like the entire.
Yeah. No, and it also just brings in the community's conversation into it, like how these things can be used, and then you can broadcast it. And I think it's just a really good idea, personally. Like, I mean, it'd be awesome if you could get like the Maker Foundation to use it, right? Like that'd be so sick.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's what this instrument really should be used for. I mean, we're in a bull market, or we're essentially kind of in a bull market, but like in a bear market, something like this is incredibly powerful because it gives you the guarantee.
I even think that scale in the industry in a bull market, like.
I mean, yeah, but like the industry tends to be full of degens. So
but at the individual level, they're all degens. But like if you look at the way that like Synthetics and Aave behave at like the aggregate, like it's almost like when 10,000 people make a decision together, they're more responsible than every single one of those 10,000 people make their own super risky decisions. But like I think that like Synthetics has had this problem with like SUSD shorts and like not having enough people to take the other side. So like there's a big part of it that is like, yeah, we're in a bull market and people are full risk on. And I think that when there is a down market, people are going to understand how much superior BarnBridge's modeling and coding is in a downside environment than some of the other groups that are trying to do the same thing. But we'll just have to like let everybody find that out when it happens. But with that said, the bigger piece is if these DAOs are almost functioning as like companies or partnerships or collectives that generate fees, you can't do legitimate financial planning without fixed income. And so right. I do think these DAOs should be looking at BarnBridge, but their treasuries are in different things is my point, which is why we probably want to get the TVL across a basket of stable coins instead of just incentivizing USDC across. But I agree, the industry is risk on, but that doesn't mean like Aave is taking its tokens and aping into like shitcoin farms. They're still being conservative with those bags.
Yeah, no, I agree. I just think well, whatever.
We're kind of saying the same thing. I'm just like expanding on
pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, I was just going to chime into that. Yeah, so I think the use case for having other treasuries leverage smart yield is definitely clear, and there would be a benefit to them. I think on our end, in terms of putting our own capital into the products as an example, I think makes sense. But I think over the long term, we have to reconcile that against other uses of our capital. So whether it's expenditure that would go towards building out new teams in the DAO, but also other aspects of leveraging our bond tokens to sort of build influence across other projects that are strategic and to align with them, right? So some of the conversations around seeding the Bancor pool with bond, right? That was an example of basically being able to create liquidity for bond in another pool, but also earn governance tokens from Bancor, which gives us some level of agency within their network, right? In voting for proposals that we might want to put forth that are beneficial to us. So I think we've been having this sort of like ongoing conversations around how we deploy and
but this is kind of around the idea of using the fees, not like the bond.
Yeah,
but
clarify, that's the state. That's
but the fees,
I didn't know at the beginning. Are those fees converted into bond when you hit that transfer? Do they transfer stable coins into our treasury?
No, it's the stable coins directly in.
Well, then, yeah, I think
for sure.
Then we're talking about something completely different. We're just talking about what do we do with those stable coins, Akeem? Like that 500K in fees that we accrue.
No, I understand that, but that's all capital that's all value that's in the treasury anyway, right? So the question becomes, would you put that stable coin in smart yield to earn yield passively, or would you use that, for example, for capital expenditure, right, to fund a team that's building value for the network, right? That's still a capital outlay. And
I mean, you could even you could do a buyback and then seed the buyback into like Bancor too, right?
yeah, potentially, right? But I think so. The point I was trying to make is, like, I think there's a broader conversation around how to deploy, whether it's fees or bond tokens. Like, what are the most effective activities to deploy that to? And I think in the nascent stage of a network, right? In my view, capital expenditure to actually like spend things to build things that like essentially create value over the long term. I would default to that generally, all things considered. Um, right then, and so I think it's a matter of quantum, right? Are we talking about putting a few 100,000 or a couple million in smart yield? That's one thing. But if we're talking about like deploying large amounts of our fees, I'd rather think about how we use and deploy those fees into building and an expenditure that might pay off down the line as opposed to passive income in the short term.
Well, it depends on the amount too, right? Like, let's say BarnBridge's treasury is like $100 million and we're throwing off $20 million of fees a year. Well, we don't operate at like a $2 million burn rate. And so basically, if you like use the bond token in that scenario to help with some of that, then like, yeah, it's like a no-brainer, and like some of that essentially comes back into the treasury. But like, if you have a 10% interest rate on like Aave, and you can basically lock in an annual 10% interest rate with $20 million, and keep the burn rate of BarnBridge for core team under $2 million in that scenario, then you essentially have an evergreen like platform that's cash flowing. And like at higher numbers, then that really starts to like come into effect. So like, that's how like real world CFOs do financial planning. Like, they lock in their annual expenses using fixed income products. And then, yeah, like the excess, you go out and you bet on longer term plays. But, year to year, you basically know, like, if we deposit this here, we not only have that $20 million in cash, but we also are going to generate $2 million off of it this year. That's what you do with, like, I would say, your responsible capital. And then the delta between like locking in runway and then how much you have in excess, that becomes like a conversation that the CFO then starts to think about. Do we have things that we invest in, or do we have other ways that we distribute this, right? So I think that we're not there yet, but like a lot of protocols are, like Synthetics is cash flow positive. Yearn is throwing off crazy amounts of revenue right now. I think they did more last month than they did all of 2020. So I think us starting to talk about that and show the industry, like, this is how you use BarnBridge to do financial planning like that, is a step in the right direction that will get us to where we need to go, probably more than seeding a Bancor pool, even, in my opinion. But I think that's something.
I mean, it's just such a powerful instrument, and we haven't seen anything like it yet. And we haven't seen in the ecosystem like a project use something like that in that form, right? Where it's pretty wild if you do use it that way, because you start to have these like independent organizations like built into Web3 just operating, right? And that's where, like, I mean, that's like the future. Like, that's just galaxy brain stuff, but it's wild to think about. So like, I agree, like showcasing it ourselves is like totally worth it, especially in a public way. Okay. So I think we had a good conversation about that. I actually look forward to hearing what the community has to say about that. So I'm gonna cut that and then throw it to the community, get some feedback. So I know they've been asking about it a little bit too. So I don't think there's anything else we want to cover. If there's anything anybody wants to bring up, go for it, or forever hold your peace.
Just go.
I just want to.
Sorry.
No, Pablo, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to give a quick shout out to Sir Edward because he is constantly trying to use some new FAQ commands in the Discord, and like it's just exciting. I have promised you, man, that we'll update that. The only reason we haven't yet is just because we haven't released the docs v2, and we'll have some links from the FAQ to the v2 version. So that's the only reason we haven't done that yet, but we'll do.
We need Pablo's loop.
Yeah, he's just trying to do that each day. It's like, so shout out, respect.
Nice.
Tyler, do you want to give a shout out to your Bucks? Is that what you want to do before we end this?
I don't know. I
Can you
mean, we
hold
just gave one to my older brother. I think that's good enough. He'll
There
see,
you go.
but
That's cool.
I'll send Wright some bond as a tip. He's been hustling for us, and he doesn't get paid anything.
Good man. Okay, and with that, we will see everyone in 2 weeks. Sayonara.
Peace.
Adios. Bye, everyone.